Who's going to win the Heisman this year? What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Touchdowns to Home Runs. Today we got Heisman predictions. I'm giving you guys my top 5 predictions for who I think is going to be the favorites for the Heisman this season. Guys, if you're new here, or even if you've been here before and you're subscribed, do me a huge favor. It helps me a lot more than you think it does. Smash that like button down below, and if you're not subscribed, definitely go hit that sub button. It'd mean a lot. And if you love college football content, I guarantee you this is the place for you. The Heisman Trophy. So now, last year, are we in a different kind of wave of how the Heisman's going to go now that we finally have a non-quarterback winning last year as Devontae Smith breaks out at wide receiver and has one of, if not the best season a college wide receiver has ever had and breaks out and wins the Heisman Trophy? Are we going to be in a separate wave now where we start to see a lot more running backs, we start to see a lot more wide receivers, maybe even some defensive players get into the mix for Heisman and start making those top 4 finalists? I don't know. I don't know if last season was just kind of an outlier season just because Devontae had such a great year, or we are actually kind of getting into a new wave of how the Heisman Trophy will work. Now, I'm going to give some honorable mentions. I have my top 5 guys, but there's still some guys that I'm going to be missing in this list that definitely deserve to be in the talk about getting the Heisman. Like, for instance, I think Matt Corral definitely is in the hunt for a Heisman. He had an unbelievable season last year at Ole Miss, and if Ole Miss can really step on the gas this year and have a good season, he could be in that race, no questions asked. I look at guys like Bijan Robinson out of Texas. I look at guys like maybe even Kevin Harris from my South Carolina Gamecocks. There's tons of players that aren't going to be in this top 5 that I still think are going to be good enough. De'Ara King is another one that I still think are going to be good enough to have a shot at this Heisman. But I think we should start getting into starting off at number 5. Who is my number 5 guy? Let's get to him. Bryce Hall out of Iowa State. Bryce Hall, I think, in my opinion, even though I'm a huge Gamecocks fan and I think Kevin Harris is one of the best running backs in all of college football, I have no problems in saying that Bryce Hall is the best running back in all of college football. And I think that it would just be insensitive and just foolish to not put a non-QB position in this top 5 because, yes, I'm going to say it, the rest of my top 4 are going to be quarterbacks. But I think Bryce Hall, if any non-QB position player is going to win the Heisman this year, I'm going to go Bryce Hall. Last season at Iowa State, he rushed for 1,572 yards, 21 touchdowns, and a 5.6 average per attempt. He is going to have a monster season, especially in the Big 12. When you have the Big 12 defenses and you are a high-powered offense, having Bryce Hall and having an experienced quarterback with Brock Purdy in Iowa State, I'm feeling really, really good about where Bryce Hall is heading into this season and his chances at potentially coming out with the Heisman this season. If any non-quarterback's going to do it, I definitely bet my money on Bryce Hall because he is a baller. Let's get into number 4. And I'm not even going to talk when I first bring up the graphic of who I have at number 4 because it's going to shock some people. It's going to be something interesting. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen right now, and I'm just not going to talk for 5 seconds. That might have been a bit longer than 5 seconds, but how on earth at number 4 do I have 2 quarterbacks? How do I have 2 players for my number 4 player? Like, this isn't you can't have 2 players in one spot, what I did, because I'm interesting, and this is something I honestly and truly believe, that I think that the winner of this game, the first game of the season, perhaps the biggest game in all of college football in the regular season this year, Georgia versus Clemson, that game is being played at Charlotte. That's why I had Bank of America Stadium in the background there. I honestly believe whoever wins this game, and I'm not making a prediction for this game because it is still far away from being called a prediction and seeing what the spread comes out and all of that. But I honestly believe that the quarterback who wins this game is going to make a huge leap in the Heisman standings, while the quarterback that loses this game, I think, might be kicked out. Like, their chances of winning the Heisman are going to be dropped dramatically. So that's why I have these 2 guys here, JT Daniels and DJ Uiagalelei. If, let's say, Georgia wins this game, and DJ, whatever, he doesn't win, he is going to be followed for the rest of that season in all of his Heisman hopes that the one comparable defense that he went up against in Georgia, he could not win against. And the same thing kind of goes for Georgia in this scenario, because If, let's say, Clemson wins, JT Daniels is going to be kind of followed the same thing, that the only comparable defense that he played was Clemson, and he still lost that game. So I truly and honestly believe that the quarterback who shows up in this game and the winning team of this game in Charlotte, first week of college football, will have the best chance of winning a Heisman out of these two, and it will help their Heisman rankings immensely. I'm talking this game is a make or break scenario, not only for playoff implications, not only to make the playoff, but the Heisman for these two quarterbacks. I think this game has a lot riding on it, and it is going to be an amazing and exciting Saturday when we finally kick off college football. I cannot wait for that game. Coming in at number 3, I'm going with the big new coming quarterback at Alabama. That is right, Bryce Young. Now, yes, he was at Alabama last season. We got to see him at the ends of some blowout games, and I just watched him in this last spring game that Alabama just played. He is looking good. He is looking really, really good. There's still a few, what I like to call freshman errors, just some thought processes and everything. He's got to look better on his screen passes. I think that that's where his main weakness in that Alabama game was. Screen passes weren't the greatest for him, but throwing downfield accuracy to the outsides, pinpoint perfect for Bryce Young in that Alabama spring game. And I think he is going to have as good of a season as Mac Jones did. Bryce Young has the athleticism, he's got the arm strength, he's got everything to be the best quarterback in college football this season. Coming in his first full season, he has the opportunity to be the best quarterback in college football, and that's why I have him at number 3. I think that he has immense talent, and he is really going to put it up this season, so that's why I have Bryce Young at number 3. So far we have Breece Hall at number 5. We have DJ Uiagalelei / JT Daniels at number 4, and then coming in at number 3, we just had Bryce Young. Going into number 2, a lot of people have this guy number 1, and I think honestly on some odd sites this guy is number 1, but I'm going to go with Sam Howell, quarterback out of North Carolina. A lot of people have this guy going first overall in the draft next year too. Last season he put up 3,586 yards for 30 touchdowns. He threw 7 interceptions last season for North Carolina and ultimately led them to an Orange Bowl, which later they did lose to Texas A&M, but to get North Carolina to a New Year's Six bowl game is a pretty big deal, and I think Sam Howell was the main factor in why North Carolina was so successful last season. Sam Howell is a big dude. He's 6'1", 225 pounds, so he's got the physical size that you want at quarterback, and he's just showed constantly why he deserves the talk that he does, why he deserves all the Heisman hype. Yes, he had an amazing receiving core last season, which a bunch of guys at North Carolina are going on to the NFL. How will Sam Howell do this season? Is he going to be able? I think a key for him to be able to win the Heisman is getting to an ACC Championship game. I'm not saying you have to win it, but I think Sam Howell has to get the Tar Heels to at least an ACC Championship game to play Clemson to be able to win a Heisman. And honestly, that division is wide open this year in the ACC. I don't know what's going to happen, and I do think that North Carolina and Miami are going to be the two favorites there. So there's a lot riding on Sam Howell, but I think he could do it, and I think he definitely deserves that number 2 spot of Heisman hopes. Coming in at number 1, easy pick for number 1. I don't think that there's anyone else to be left on the board. Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma. He was probably my best bet for the Heisman last season in terms of getting the most bang for your buck in terms of his odds. Yes, he struggled at the beginning of the season last year. He did not have the greatest start, but towards the end of the season, if you go into the last games of that season, you go into the Big 12 championship and you go into the Florida game in, the Cotton Bowl, Spencer Rattler is here to stay in college football, and I think he's going to be the first quarterback off the board in next year's NFL draft. He threw for 3,031 yards for 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions last season. But this Oklahoma team is only getting better. And to bet against an Oklahoma quarterback winning the Heisman, Oklahoma breeds Heisman winners. And I think it is just stupid not to have this guy number 1. I would take him as my Heisman, if I had to bet money down on who I think is going to win the Heisman, obviously I am going with Spencer Rattler. I think he has the athleticism. I think he has the team around him to get to a playoffs. Another thing that's very underrated in looking at who's going to make the Heisman is how well does your team actually do, because team success is something that actually really, really helps your Heisman candidacy. Now, yes, there are some guys down the line that you look at that didn't even make it to the playoff. You look at Lamar Jackson at Louisville, but I think team success all in all really, really helps your Heisman candidacy. And I think Spencer Rattler is not only going to have a great season individually, but as a team, the Oklahoma Sooners, I think, are going to get back into the playoffs. So that is my video for today, guys. Number 5, Breece Hall. Number 4, DJ Uiagalelei / JT Daniels. Number 3, I had Bryce Young. Number 2, I had Sam Howell. And number 1, I had Spencer Rattler. Thank you guys for watching this video. Definitely like down below. Comment down below. Hit that sub button. It would be really, really appreciated. And definitely come back next time for some more great college football content.